They told me the night shift would be easy. Just watch the monitors and stay awake. But there was one rule I should have never broken. Never answer the phone after 3 am. Now, something in the room with me, and it's not human. Marcus was a 20-year-old student from Chicago who had moved to a small, isolated town in Australia for a university exchange program to save money. He took the only job available, the night shift at old dusty petrol station. The station sat on the edge of the vast, empty highways. For miles in every direction, there was nothing but red dirt and dead trees. Marcus did not mind the silence at first. He used the time to study his textbook and listen to music. However, his boss, a wrinkled old man named Mr. Miller, had given him a warning on his first very night that stayed in his mind. Listen closely, Marcus, Mr. Miller had said, pointing a shaking finger at an old, black rotary phone mounted on the wall. The cell service out here is terrible, so we keep this landline for emergencies. But if that phone rings between 3 a.m. and 4 a.m., you left the ring and don't answer it. Do not even look at it. Marcus had asked why, but Mr. Miller simply shook his head and walked out, leaving the smell of stale tobacco behind. For the first month, the phone never rang. Marcus assembled it was just a local superstition on a prank the local played on foreigners. It was a Tuesday night, exact sixth week in his job. The wind was howling outside, pushing sand against the glass window and a sound like scratching fingernails. Marcus was drinking a cup of butter coffee, trying to stay awake. He checked the clock, 3 a.m. Suddenly, a sharp, piercing sound broke the silence. Marcus jumped, spilling his coffee. It was the landline. The sound was incredibly loud in the small shop. He stared at the phone. It looked ancient, covered in a thin layer of dust. He remembered Mr. Miller's warning. His heart began to beat faster. Who would be calling a remote gas station at this hour? Maybe there was an accident on the highway. As an American, he felt a sense of responsibility. What if someone was hurt and needed the police? He waited. The phone rang 10 times, then stopped. The silence that followed was even scarier than the ringing. Marcus took a deep breath and tried to return to his book, but he could not focus. He felt as if someone was watching him through the dark windows. At 3:15 a.m., a pair of headlights appearing in the distance. A heavy black sedan pulled into the station. It did not stop at the pumps. It parked in the shadow at the very edge of a lot. Marcus stood up. He expected someone to get out, but the car just sat there, its engine idling with a low, growing sound. But it was after midnight. The door to the shop were locked for safety. Customer has to use a smell mentor drawer to pay for gas station. Marcus picked up the microphone for the outdoor speaker and he asked, "Can I help you?" There was no response. The car. The car windows were tinted so dark that he could not see the driver. Suddenly, the car high beams flashed 3 times. Then the car turned off its lights completely and sat in total darkness. Fear began to crawl up Marcus' spine. He reached for his cell phone to call the police, but the screen showed no service. He was truly alone. At 3:30 a.m. the landline rang again. This time Marcus did not hesitate. The fear of the silent car outside was worse than the fear of the phone. He needed to hear a human voice. He grabbed the receiver. Hello? Is someone there? I need help. At first, there was only static. Then he heard a sound that made his blood turn to ice. It was the sound of someone breathing, slow, heavy, and wet. Hello, Marcus whispered. A voice replied, Hello, Marcus gasped. The voice on the other end did not sound human. It sounded like his own voice, but prayer in the slow motion. I can see you, Marcus, the voice said. You look nervous in your blue uniform. Marcus dropped the phone. How did the caller know his name? How did they know what he wearing? He looked at the security camera monitor. The black car was still there. But now the driver's side door opened. The seat was empty. Marcus backed away from the counter, retreating into a small office behind him. He watched the monitor closely. He saw a tall, thin figure moving through the window of the parking lot. The figure was not walking, it was twitching, moving in a strange, unnatural angle. Suddenly, a sound came from the front window. Tap, tap, tap. Marcus looked. A long, pale finger was tapping against the glass. The person, or whatever it was standing right outside, but their face was hidden by a dark hood. The landline, still hanging by its cord, began to emit a sound. Even from across the room, Marcus could hear it. It was playing a recording for the conversations he had just had. I need help, I need help, I need help. His own voice repeated over and over, getting faster and higher in pitch until it sounded like a scream. Marcus realized that the creature was trying to get in. The glass of the front door began to crack. He ran to the back exit, but as he reached for the handle, he remembered Mr. Miller's second rule. Never leave the building until the sun touched the horizon. He was trapped. He looked back at the monitor. The finger was gone from the window. He felt a moment of relief, thinking it had left. But then he looked at the camera inside the store. The figure was standing in the middle of the ashleys, right next to the potato chips. It had bypassed the locked door entirely. It returned it had 180 degree to look directly into the camera. It had no eyes, only empty black holes. Marcus looked the office door and hid under the desk. He covered his eyes, but he could hear a office door handle slowly turning. Marcus must have passed from the terror. When he opened his eyes, the room was filled with bright and warm sunlight. He heard a loud knocking. Marcus, open up. It's morning. It was Mr. Miller. Marcus scrambled to the door and unlocked it. He fell into the hallway, gasping for air. The store was perfectly normal. No cracks in the glass, no figure in the ashleys. It was here. Marcus yelled. Someone was in the store. The phone rang. Mr. Miller looked at Marcus with a sad, tired expression. He walked over a landline and picked the receiver. He held it out to Marcus. The cord was not plugged into the wall. In fact, there was no wires at all. The phone was just a plastic shell bolted to the wood. I told you not to answer it, son, Mr. Miller whispered. Once you answer, they know your voice. And once they know your voice, they never stop calling. Marcus quit his job that day. He moved back to Chicago a week later. But every night At exact 3 am, his modern smartphone, even when turned off, started to ring. And when he looked at the screen, it showed no number, just one word: private. Imagine being 5,000 miles away from home, working in a place where no one can hear your scream. I thought this job was my ticket to a new life. But as the sun went down, I realized I am not only one working at night shift, and the other guy, he died 10 years ago. Elena loved the night. She was an expat from England, living in Tokyo, working as a night security guard for a massive modern office building. Her friends thought she was crazy to work from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., but Elena enjoyed the peace. The building, called the Akira Tower, but was a silent giant when everyone else was asleep. Her job was a simple: sit in a comfortable security room on the ground floor, watch 50 glowing monitors, and make sure no one broke it. The Akira Tower had 12 floors, filled with busy companies during the day. At night, it was just arena, the hum of computers, and the distant sound of the city. She would drink green tea, read her favorite mystery novels, and essentially work the empty hallways from the ground floor. The higher floor was always locked and secured. Nothing even happened at night. Her Japanese supervisor, Mr. Tanaka, always said, "It's the safest job in Tokyo." For 6 months, Mr. Takana was right. Elena's nights were calm and predictable until one particularly windy Tuesday, when a very small, very strange things catch her eyes. It was a little after midnight. Alina was watching camera number 8, which showed the building main elevators. It was an old, classic elevator, but it had a modern digital display above its door that showed which floor it opened on. Right now, it showed ground floor. Suddenly, the display flickered instead of G. It briefly showed the number 13. Alina blinked. That's odd. She mumbled to herself. The Akira Tower only had 12 floors. She knew that's for a fact. She had been see the blueprints. The roof was directly above the 12th floor. There was no 13th floor. She thought it was a simple computer glitch. Maybe the strong wind outside were affecting the screener. She watched the display for a few or more minutes, but it returned to G. She struggled and went back to her book. An hour later, as she was doing her duty, clear of the old monitors, she saw it again. On the monitor showing the main elevator, the digital display briefly flashed 13 before quickly changing back to G. This time, Elena felt a tiny prickle to unease. Twice was a bit too much for a simple glitch. She pulled up the elevator service manual on her computer. She read thought it carefully, looked for any mentions of a hidden floor for a diagnostic code that might display 13. There was nothing. The system was designed for a maximum of 12th floor. Elena decided to keep too close eyes on the elevator monitor. She even zoomed on the digital display, making it bigger on her screen. She saw it happen a third time, but this time it lingered for almost 5 seconds. The number 13 glowed bright red. Then something else happened. The list of active cameras on her main screen was normally showed camera 1 to camera 50, briefly added a new line to the bottom. Camera 13 alive. Elena gasped, her blood ran cold. She clicked on it without thinking. The new monitor flicked her screen. It showed a dimly light room. It looked like an office, but it was much older than the office on the other floors. The walls were peeling and the desk looked ancient, made of dark, heavy wood. Papers were scattered everywhere, and a single flickering fluorescent light hung from the ceiling. And then Elena saw her. A woman was sitting at the desk. She wore a grey business suit that looked old fashioned. Her hair was pulled back tightly, and her face was very pale. What shocked Elena the most was that the woman was staring directly into the camera. Her eyes, dark and unblinking, seemed to look right through Elena. Elena leaned closer to the monitor. Her heart was pounding. "Who's that?" she whispered. "How's she up there?" She quickly checked the building employees list. No one matched the woman description. She checked the guest log. Nothing. It was impossible. No one was supposed to be in the building as this hour, especially not on a floor that does not exist. As Alina watched, the woman in grey did not move. She just stared. Alina felt an unsettling sense that the woman was not looking at the camera, but at her. Alina tried to relationize it. Maybe it was a reflection, a trick of a light, but this image was clear. The woman was real, or at least a very convincing image for her was. Helena decided to try something. She had a speaker system connected to all floors, used for emergencies. She pressed the button for all floors and spoke into the microphone. "Hello, is anyone on floor 13? This is security. Please identify yourself." Her voice echoed through the silence building, but the woman on the screen did not react. She did not blink, did not move a muscle. She just stared, her pale face unchanging. Elena pulled up the building floor plan again, frantically looking for hidden areas. Any secret room? There was nothing. The 13th floor was not real, yet on her screen, camera 13 was active, and the woman in grey was still there. Elena felt a cold sweat for her forehead. She remembered stories from her childhood, old English folk tales about lost souls and ghosts. She had always dismissed them as silly. But now, alone in the silent tower in Tokyo, she could not help but feel a growing dread. She watched the monitors with the woman for what felt like an externally. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the image seemed to change. The woman's face appeared a tiny bit larger, a tiny bit closer to the camera. Elena blinked. Had she imagined it? She stared hard. No, it was real. The woman was slowly getting closer to the lens. It was as if she was crawling toward the camera, but her body did not seem to move. Only her face grew large on the screen. The dark, empty eyes now seemed to fill more of the monitors. Alina could see tiny cracks in her pale skin, like old porcelain. A shiver ran down her spine. This was not living person. This should not be. Alina knew she should call someone. But who? Mr. Takana would think she was crazy. "I see a ghost on the 13th floor, which does not exist, sir." She could already hear his confused voice. She tried to close the camera 13 window on her screen, but it would not respond. The mouse moved, but the close button did not work. The image of the woman's face was now very clear close, was stuck on her screen. The woman's face was now so close that it filled half of monitor. Her hair was messy, her lips were thin, almost invisible, and her eyes, those two dark, bottomless holes, were now staring directly as Elena's reflection in the screen. Suddenly, a loud ding echoed through the screen security room. Elena jumped, almost falling off her chair. She looked around frantically. The ding had come from behind her. It was the sound of the main elevator. She spun around. The elevator door, which were usually closed and still at this hour, were closed, slowly opening. And above them, the digital display glowed bright red. It's read 13. The elevator door was fully open now. The hallway outside the security room was dark, ju- just like it always was at night. But as Elena watched in horror, the motion sensor light in the hallway began to click on one by one. The light lit up a path directly from the open elevator door to Elena's desk. Each click was like an heartbeat in the silent building. Elena was frozen. She wanted to scream, to run, but her body would not obey. She could not take her eyes off the hallway. The light kept coming on, getting closer and closer. On her monitor, the image of the woman in grey was now just one giant black eyes. It was pressed too close to the camera lens that it filled the entire screen, like a dark, hungry void. The last night clicked on, illuminating the space directly in front of her desk. The hallway was empty. There was nothing there. But then Elena felt something. A faint, cold breath on her back of her neck. It smelled like old dust and cold metal. She felt a whisper in her ear, a voice that was not her, not human, just a dry, rasping sound. You answered the call, Elena. Elena let out a guttural scream, pushing her hair back and falling on the screen. When she dared to look up, the hallway was dark again. The elevator door was closed. The display above them showed G. Her monitor was all normal, showing empty hallways on regular floors. Camera 13 was gone from the list. It was 6 a.m. Her shift was over. Mr. Takana walked in, looking cheerful. Good morning, Elena. Everything's quiet tonight? Elena could not speak. She just pointed a trembling finger at the elevator. Mr. Takana looked confused. What is it? Elena never worked another night shift. She moved back to England, away from the silent tower of Tokyo. But sometime, when she was alone in an elevator and the door closed, she feel a strange coldness. For a split second, she feel the left drop, not up, not down, but to the floor that does not exist. And in the corner of her vision, her she swear she seen a number 13. If you are watching this, never take a night shift in an all empty building. I am trapped. The temperature is dropping and the shadows are starting to move. My name is Liam and this might be my last recording. Whatever you do, don't look behind you. Liam was a 22-year-old traveler from Australia. He had spent his life in the sun and heat, but now he was in the far north of Norway, working a temporary job to fund his travels. He worked at Northern Frozen Logistics, A massive industrial warehouse that stored thousands of tons of frozen meat and seafoods. The warehouse was a giant, windowless box made of steel and concrete. Inside, the temperature was kept at the constant minus 20 degrees Celsius. Liam's job was at night shift, safety monitor. Every 2 hours, he had to walk through the giant freezer, check the digital thermometers, and ensure the cooling fans were spinning correctly. Because it was so cold, Liam had to wear a high-tech thermal suit. It was a thick, heavy jumpsuit that covered him from the head to toe, leaving only a small gap for his eyes behind a plastic visor. The suit was equipped with a heater and small radio. Don't stay inside for more than 15 minutes to a time, his supervisor said. A scream man named Eric warned him. At 20, the cold does not just chill your skin, it bites your bones, and if the door locked, well, let's just say the meat is not the only thing that stay fresh in there. The warehouse was famous for dark story. 10 years ago, a worker named Klaus has gone missing during the night shift. They did not find him for 3 days. He had been accidentally locked inside freezer number 4. When they finally opened the door, they found him frozen solid, standing up straight with a look of pure terror on his face. The local worker joined that Klaus was still there, watching over the inventory. Liam did not believe in ghosts, but he hated freezers for. It was the largest and deepest room in the warehouse, filled with tall wooden crates and heavy plastic curtains that blocked the view. It was 2 a.m. on Friday. The warehouse was silent except for the low hum of the massive cooling engines. Liam zipped up his terminal suit, checking his oxygen level, and stepped into the airlock. He walked past freezer 1, 2, and 3. Everything was fine and normal. Silver door of freezer number 4. He pulled the lever and stepped inside. The air inside freezer number 4 was a thick, white fog. Liam's breath clouded his visor instantly. He walked deep into the room, checking the first thermometers minus 21. He noted. He walked further back, wading through the tall stock of frozen crates. Suddenly, he heard a sound. Slam. He spun around. The heavy steel door, which was held open by a magnetic lock, had shut. Liam rushed back to the door. He grabbed the emergency internal handle. The handle was designed to open the door from the inside, even it was locked from the outside. He pulled nothing. He pulled harder with a screaming snap. The metal handle broke off his hand. It had become brittle from the extreme cold. No, 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 Liam whispered. His heart began to race. He grabbed his radio. Security, this is Liam. I am trapped in freezer number 4. The internal handle is broken. Static. That was all he heard. The thick steel walls of the freezer were like a shield, blocking the signals. He was alone in a giant icebox, and the next shift would not arrive for another 6 hours. Liam tried to stay calm. Think, Liam, think, he told himself. He looked from anything to use as tool to pry the door open, but everything was frozen solid. As he stood by the door, he heard a new sound. It was not the hum of the fans. It was a soft, rhythmic, screeching sound. It was coming from the back of the freezer behind the tall stacks of crates. Is someone there? Liam called out. His voice sounded small in the vast room. The scratching stopped. Then, from the darkness, a voice whispered. It did not sound like it was coming from a person. It sounded like the wind whistling through a crack. Is it warm out there yet? Liam froze. His blood felt like it was turning to ice. Who are you? He turned his flashlight toward the sound. The beam of light high hit a pail of old wooden crates in the corner. Behind the crates, he saw a pair of boots. They were old leather boots, covered in a thick layer of white frost. Liam backed away, hitting his head against the cold steel door. The boots did not move. He realized they were the same boots the worker wore 10 years ago. Suddenly, this terminal suit heater flickered and died. The red light on his wrist turned to a blinking blue. Low battery. Immediately, the cold began to seep in. It felt like needles piercing his skin. His fingers began to go numb. They started to silver violently. This was the first stage of hypothermia. The sound was closer now. It was not coming from the streets anymore. It was coming from the floors. Liam looked down. He saw a hand, pale, blue, and covered in ice, crawling along the floor like a spider. It had no body attached to it. It was just a frozen hand, dragging itself toward his boots. He kicked at it, screaming. The hand scurried back into the window and the shadow. Then his radio suddenly sparked to life, but it was not the security team. It was same whispering voice from before coming directly through his headset. It's so cold, Liam. Why is it so cold? Give me your suit. Give me your warmth. Liam felt a heavy weight on his shoulder. Something was pressing down on him. He turned his head as far he could inside his helmet. A face was pressed against the outside of a plastic visor. It was a man's face, but the skin was white and translucent, like a dead fish. The eyes were wide and filled with frost. The man was smiling, but his lips were cracked and bleeding blue blood. It was Klaus. The ghost was not just standing there, he was hugging Liam, wrapping his frozen arm around the terminal suit, trying to soak up the last bit of heat. Liam could feel the cold radiating off the ghost, overpowering the suit's insulations. Leave me alone, Liam sobbed. He began to punch the air, but his movements were slow and heavy. The cold was making him sleepy. He knew that if he was fell asleep, he would never wake up. The ghost face pressed harder against the visor. A thin crack appeared in a plastic crack. The minus 20 degrees Celsius air rushed into Liam's helmet. It felt like a knife cutting into his face. At 8 a.m., the morning shift arrived. Eric, the supervisor, went to check the logs. He noticed freezer number 4 door was shut and the handle was lying on the floor. Liam shouted, signaling for the other workers to help him pry the door open with a crowbar. When the door finally swung open, a cloud of freezing mist poured out. They found Liam lying on the floor, inches away from the exit. He was covered in a thick layer of frozen. The doctor said it was a miracle. Liam had survived, but he had suffered for a bite for his handle and face. As Liam sat in the hospital bed, wrapped in heated blankets. Eric came to visit him. I'm sorry, Liam, Eric said. That handle should been replaced years ago. But tell me, why did you tear your snout off? Liam looked at him, confused. What do you mean? When we found you, Eric said, his voice trembling, your terminal suit was unzipped and someone had scratched words in your chest. The doctor think you did it yourself in the state of delirium. Liam pulled back his hospital gown. Their scratches into his skin in red, frozen mark were the words. Still cold. Liam looked at the window. Outside, the sun was shining and it was a beautiful summer day. But no matter how many blankets they gave him, he never felt warm again.